Bruiser, when you're going against a team that likes to go small and use a bunch of guards, what are the kind of the positive and negatives of countering that with your own your athleticism and guards versus trying to take advantage of your size?
I think you always do what you do best. Uh, when you try to counter what the other team does, sometimes it doesn't work. So I think we're going to stick to our plan. We know we got some tough matchups. We've talked about it. But, we've been pretty good defensively, no matter what they pretty much put out there. So I think we're going to stick to what we do. We have a size advantage. We hope that we take advantage of that on both ends of the floor with rebounding and posting the ball. But I don't think at times I think you have to do what you do best. And if it calls for you to go small, then sometimes you would go small. But right now, I think we just got to try to do what we do best.
John, do you have another one?
Sure. Bruiser, obviously, there's been a lot of talk recently about Ty Ty's improvements and just how maybe quiet he is out there at times. In your experience, just how rare is that, especially for a young guy, to be able to be that efficient?
Well, one thing about Ty is just a really good basketball player. I think that's the thing about his efficiency comes in. He's a really good basketball player. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't rush himself. He's very patient out there. A lot of times with you ask for young, especially young kids, they try to do things that they can't, but he doesn't do that. I think that's the thing that makes him really special. And when you watch him, you're not going to necessarily jump over top of you or do some super athletic play. He just does what he needs to do to be efficient out there. So he's very patient for a freshman. A lot of freshmen try to rush it, but for him, I think his biggest thing is he knows what he does well, and he's very patient when he's doing it.
Gary Graves, go ahead.
Coach, what have you seen lately from Davion that has really helped his game as opposed to last year? And I guess what kind of versatility has that provided for the backcourt?
I just think early he just didn't hit shots. Davion always gives you an unbelievable effort on defense, unbelievable hustle. He's a really good rebounder from the guard position. Everybody just looks at his points. You look at the box score, and at the beginning of the season, he just didn't shoot the ball well. Now, all of a sudden, he's back to shooting the ball the way he did last year. But in terms of everything else, his hustle, his defense, his rebounding, just being a guy that really gives you great energy when he's out on the floor, that was all there. He just wasn't knocking down shots at the beginning of the season, but now he's getting back to knocking down some shots. So guys pay a little bit more attention to him because the box score looks a little bit better.
Jerry Tipton, we'll circle back to you.
Yeah, Bruiser, I wonder when you say guys pay more attention when the box score looks better, who do you mean by guys?
One, the media. So the media guys, you guys look at the box score. You want to see the numbers. So when people don't put up the numbers, sometimes you guys think they're struggling, but they bring in other parts to the game. That's what I meant by that. I think Davion has always brought that part of the game in terms of his hustle, his defense, and his energy. I think that hasn't stopped. He just wasn't knocking down any shots.
And I wonder too, how do you assess what A&M does well, the threat they pose?
Really good guard play. Really good guard play. One of the things they've done is they've won a lot of close games. So, they have guys that can make plays when they need them. But I think their guard play has been phenomenal. They get after you defensively. They put a lot of pressure on you offensively. So it's one of the better, more balanced teams in the league from watching them on film. So it's gonna be tough down there. It's a reason why they're 5-0. They went on the road and won a couple tough games, and they've won some good games at home. So this gonna be a challenge.
John Hale, go ahead.
Bruiser, we talk all the time about trap games when you've got a really high matchup coming up on the weekend. You're coming off a really good performance. How important is it that you have these veterans to kind of avoid that? Is that easier when you have an older team?
You don't have a trap game when the team you're playing is 5-0 and they're in first place in the league. I don't call that a trap game. If you better come ready to play, or you're going to lose because they've beaten everybody in the conference. So I don't even look at it. We don't even talk about it being a trap game because we're not worrying about our next game after this, Auburn. And we got to handle our business. This team's in first place in the SEC. So you better be ready. You know you're going to a place where they're in first place in your league. So if you think that's a trap game, then you're crazy. So we don't approach it that way. We have never talked about it. We know A&M is playing really well right now, and we better be ready.
Dick Gabriel, come to you.
Bruiser, good morning. John Calipari has said repeatedly, he said, I'm having a ball coaching this team. You've known him for a long time. Can you see that? Can you tell he's having a ball? And if so, what have you noticed?
Yes, I mean, it's just, we have really, really good kids. We have great chemistry. You get along together. As a coach, you can't ask more than that. For guys who come every day, they do what you ask them to do, both on and off the floor. I mean, it's just easy, you know what I mean, coming in and being ready. Believe me, I've had teams myself where, man, you dreaded coming in the gym sometimes. And I've had some teams that you couldn't wait. One of my favorite teams I told them when the season was over at the team banquet, I almost cried when the season was over because you just enjoyed being around them. And I think Cal has one of those groups. You just enjoy being around the guys. Forget about the basketball stuff. I just think we got great kids who come every day, and we have great relations with them. I think this is just one of those teams that does that.
Well, and other than the extra pass, you mentioned the chemistry. Other than an extra pass, on the floor, what do you see in a team that has good chemistry? How does that manifest itself?
I think one of the things the team you had good chemistry, they can get on each other. I think that's a big part of it. Guys don't put up an assignment. The coach doesn't have to coach. They get on each other, and I think this team definitely does that. When they see someone make a mistake, they get on them, or they pump them up if they see it. They put their heads down. I think that's one of the biggest things. That's where chemistry is really, really good, and guys don't get upset at it. In the new generation, that's a little harder, But this group right here, they understand. They're looking at the big picture, and they know that, hey, this is just for us to have success. And I think that's really big. And guys not afraid to get on each other. Guys not afraid to take the criticism. Guys not afraid to give out praise too. I think that's one of the big things with chemistry.
Keith Farmer will come to you next.
Kind of along those lines, I was curious, what do you see from Oscar besides the rebounding? And maybe that means off the court and in his leadership.
He's a great kid, and he's very into his faith, and he lets you know it. He's one of those guys that talks about it when we're here as a group, and I commend him for that. And he's just a kid that comes in. I think he wanted to show everybody I could do a little bit more than I did at West Virginia. I think I will say, I've been surprised with some of the things he's been able to do. But off the court, he's been great. Like I said, he's a very faithful kid. So he expresses that to everybody, as you see on his Twitter and those things of that nature. He talks about it, the team. I know he and a couple of players have talked about faith and got together, and they said Oscar's definitely opened up their eyes about those types of things. So that's the type of thing that you don't see on the floor. That people appreciate being around him.
And you kind of brought up how he's engaging with the fans because he does that a lot on Twitter, which is different than a lot of players, the way he reacts to some of their tweets and things.
Well, Oscar's a little bit of a showman, as you can see. So he has an understanding of it. He has some good things. The one that got me was the one he sent out about Miss USA. I didn't even realize she was at the game, and then I see this tweet about he showed all the guys looking up in the air, saying that she was in the gym. That takes a little bit of thought, but Oscar's a little bit of a showman. He makes you laugh. He says some funny things, but he understands it a little bit.
Jerry Tipton, go ahead.
Yeah, Bruiser, you mentioned that some guys are willing to tell a teammate, hey, get it together, or whatever the advice would be, who are some of the guys that kind of take on that role?
I mean, Xavier, Keon, those guys are pretty good. Davion, those guys are the older guys that have been involved with it a little bit. Keon and Davion they've played here. Xavier as the point guard, you want your point guard to be that way. You want him to be the coach on the floor. You want him to be a little bit of a general. So I think those guys do a really good job of leadership and making sure we're doing what we're supposed to do and showing up to prepare to get ready for games.
And you mentioned the media being maybe a little too interested in points and the box score. Back in your playing days, how much did you focus on scoring?
Everybody focuses on scoring. I mean, that goes without a doubt. I tell all my buddies' kids, I say, you want to get in the paper? Shoot the ball. That's what I say to them. When I sit down and talk to my guys who got kids now, they say, man, I want you to sit down and talk to my son. Yo, man, you want to get in there? Put the ball in the basket. That gets their attention. It always has, and it always will.
Keith Farmer, we'll circle back to you.
Yeah, I'm just curious, the kind of interactions you may have had with Joe B. Hall, or anything that you remember about him from past days, if there was any.
I didn't really we went to a few times with Cal to see him at the nursing home. But I remember Gene Banks was from Philly. He was from my neighborhood. And I remember the Duke Kentucky championship game because, I followed Duke because of Gene Banks. And that was the first time I really saw Goose Gibbons. So now I want to see him almost every day. So, when you're a basketball player, you remember those guys. So when I first got here, that was one. When he showed up the first day at practice, I was like, oh, man, that's Goose Gibbons. You know what I mean? So those are the types of things. Clarence Tillman came out here and played. He's another Philly guy who just passed away. So you follow those guys. So, they played for Joe B. Hall. And one of the things that really made it interesting, I go back a little ways, and some of the guys I didn't realize that were from Kentucky that was on those teams, like Dirk Mennefield and Melvin Turpin. I thought those guys I didn't realize they not only from Kentucky, they were like right from here. Even Goose was from here. So that's one of the things that interested me, that's going back, because I like to go back and check out the history and where guys came from and all those things like that. And looks like he did an unbelievable job in this area and getting kids from this area to come to Kentucky.